Another fantastic day for Bitcoin, now up 3%, getting very close to $37,000. Now we have our target here at $42,000, the 50% level from the all-time high. And it looks like we're going to close in on the 42K level sooner rather than later. Now I want to give you an update on the TA and also an update on those targets and where we currently sit. Now, of course, we're seeing Bitcoin pump, but it might not be the greatest news for the majority of altcoin holders. Everyone has been waiting for altcoins to pop off. Some of them have actually done very, very well, but I want to share with you some of the insights from previous cycles so that you can make the most of the next cycle coming up and not get screwed too early on in these markets, because some of these altcoins are getting pretty hot and potentially towards the end of their move up. But of course, this is the time that feels the most exciting. Let's dive into that in today's video. Like and subscribe. Thanks again for your support. Comment section down below. Pinned comment is for our Aussie viewers. The Melbourne Australian crypto convention on in Melbourne this weekend. Links down there. I'll talk more about that later, but let's dive into the rest of this video. Now, one of the weirdest, or let's say dumbest things, because honestly, this is pretty dumb. One of the dumbest things that I've heard from people was, well, Bitcoin is still 80% from its all-time high. It's still 40% from its all-time high. And that is obviously the point, to be buying things when they're low and selling them when they're high. You don't want to wait for the thing to break out. However, this is prudent to understand which markets to use this in. Things like altcoins might not be the greatest example to use this in. If it's down, people just want to buy up altcoins because they're going to explode, but some of them might not recover. So I want to show you that as well in this video. But as you can see here, Bitcoin now is down 46% from its all-time high. It's currently trading very close to $37,000. And so across the bear market now flipped into the bull market. We've covered this on the channel multiple times, saying that this was the transition. This is still the transition going from a bear to a bull. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what it smells like. This is how it happens in front of our eyes, and we miss it. Well, the majority of people miss it time and time again. That's how each of these lows happened, and now we have skyrocketed up to 37,000. At the time when March happened, banking crisis, $19,500 Bitcoin, I said after that big boom there, it's very unlikely we'll see under $19,500. The reason for that is in Gann analysis, which is why I cover it in such great detail. And it's probably one of the best kept secrets in all of trading and investing. I know it sounds ridiculous to say that for some people, but honestly, if you give it the time to study it, you will see the fantastic way that it can help you make money in these markets. That's your Gann analysis. Plenty of books online, heaps of stuff out there as well. So when you can understand that, you can see that this low was very unlikely to be broken. And that goes the same for the S&P 500, the NASDAQ. It's the same thing, but used on different markets. That March low was an extreme level, and the markets have held up from that and basically pulled away from that. Even though there have been a lot of fears along the way, markets have come down. What do you know? Higher lows all the way from that point. So as we can see from the rest of the markets, this is a good thing for Bitcoin as well, because these are also trending up now. You want to see a lot of strength in the broader market, or basically the traditional markets, because then that allows some of that risk to come into Bitcoin and then eventually into cryptocurrencies as well, into the altcoins, the degen space. So as we take a quick review here for the S&P 500, we are now 8 days up. Now, some will call yesterday a down day. Yes, it was slightly negative, 0.09, but follow the trend, higher highs, higher lows. Eventually, this will have a pullback, because you can't just keep going higher low after higher low and higher high, of course. There will be a pullback, and we're anticipating one to come in the next several days, but this is a very strong move to the upside, taking out the 50% level. As for the NASDAQ, it's 9 days now. You can see here, 9 trading days. We got higher highs here. Higher lows there as well. And this is a very strong trend out of a seasonal low there as well. So you can see the same deal here. Banking crisis happened. Markets are still well and truly up from that point. So keep that in the back of your mind as we continue to move forward in this cycle. The traditional markets are in bull markets. They've had a nice solid bounce out of those lows so far. Ideally, we want to see them break back past their July top. That'll obviously crush more of the bears out there as well. And then that's going to continue to flow back into that bull market theory, the bull market narrative, and things get hotter and hotter. The idea for us, traders and investors, is we want to get in as close to the bottoms as possible. And we were, I guess, talking about this every single day throughout that period of the transitional period on the stock market, saying that this is the low, it's forming, it takes time, this is what it smells like and it feels like, so that we can give ourselves time to prepare, because what comes next starts to get quite volatile, and if we're not prepared for it, then we can make stupid mistakes. So that's the S&P 500, it's up. We'll continue to cover that as we do on the channel here. That's the NASDAQ. As for Bitcoin, getting closer to $37,000. Now we're about 14% away from the target here at 42,000. So that's the 50% level of the all-time high to the low. The reason I've got this is that in previous cycles, the market has touched the 50% level before the halving. Does this mean it's a good thing for the entire space? Well, I think so, because eventually we're going to break back past that 50% level. Is it going to always be like that? Potentially not. It's a very critical level. And if we don't break the 50% level, 42.2, the markets will collapse from that point. I don't think that is going to happen this time round, but keep that in mind for a future cycle. Maybe the cycle after this, Bitcoin doesn't make it back past that point, but the overall markets themselves are up, and I think it's all going to continue to flow into it. It's just going to take time. So that's the halving coming up in April of 2024, and it looks like we're on the road to be hitting 42,200 before the halving. So that's your halving pump and the excitement leading into the halving, and that's probably going to come up in more of the narratives and the headlines now, especially with more of the ETF news as well. It's just all going to feed on itself and potentially get to those prices. So like we saw in the previous cycle, the low here to the cycle top, we got a touch here, and the halving was in May 2020. So there's your May hit. We got a hit on 50%, pulled back and came back down. This one happened a lot quicker, but of course we are further into the cycle now. We're around 53 weeks or so into the cycle, which is basically from the low to that point right there. So it looks like we're heading on up into this stage of the cycle now. Now this was a black swan event. It still did not take out the previous cycle low. So $15,500 in my books, in my analysis, is safe. It's not going to happen. And barring another black swan event, which I know a lot of people are waiting for, barring a black swan event, I would say $19,500 is also very, very safe. I don't think Bitcoin's going to come back to that level at all. 25,000 is probably that level now, which probably won't be hit. But if there was a black swan event, you could potentially see the market spike back down. But apart from that, I don't think 25 is going to get hit again either. And if you want to get even crazier, let's move our numbers up to 28 and 30. Not there yet. Okay, 28 and 30 is still in question, but I think there's still some room to move to the upside. So let's keep that in mind as we continue on this march towards the halving and then the hype up into the halving as well. And we'll probably see some sort of pause like we saw at the halving last time, but we did have a big collapse. Maybe we'd see a bit of a pullback. And the time before that, in 2015-16, we had the halving event through this area here. So that was sort of that May-June period, a pump up and then a pullback. And that lasted a couple of months there as well before the market consolidated and then started to push higher again. So there was the 50% breakout that time, but we also got a touch here in June just before the halving. So there's your 50%. There's the touch. Halving was roughly about here. It was June, July back in 2016. And then the market broke out of that a couple of months later. So we're not far off now, I would say, a touch and some sort of consolidation, and then eventually that break, which I think will happen like we've looked at sometime in later 2024. So the break and the closing above that particular level. At that stage, it is going to get pretty dire for altcoins, not against their USD value. The USD values are going up, as we can see here on the total cryptocurrency market cap. But of course, the comparison to their Bitcoin value, which I know most people don't even care about, but they really should, because this is part of the risk that you take being in the market. And if the altcoins aren't keeping pace with Bitcoin, then you're increasing your exposure to risk and not getting the reward. being a long-term investor, being a trader is all about reducing your risk, increasing your reward. And if you're a fool just getting into altcoins because they've been pumping, that's a surefire way to lose, especially this early on in the cycle, because what we're waiting for is the altcoin season. We're waiting for that big period there, and it only lasts several months. In the past, I think it's been about about 6 months where you get the really big move for altcoins. And then there are going to be other times where they all pop off. We had DeFi summer in 2020, and then multiple other times that altcoins have popped off through 2021, like the gaming and metaverse stages when the rest of the altcoins weren't really doing as well as that sector. So you can clearly see from the Bitcoin dominance, well, at least I hope you can, this is Bitcoin dominance. This is Bitcoin dominance. This is time that Bitcoin is in charge, and it should be respected. So there is going to be opportunity in the Bitcoin dominance as it rises, and there's going to be altcoins that are popping off. That's probably not a bad spot to congratulate all of our members who are making huge gains in their crypto trading. But remember, this is trading and it's shorter term. So it's not for everyone. But if you're into that, then these are fantastic periods to be getting into those altcoin trades, because the opportunities are presenting themselves. So if you want to learn more about that, links are in the top of the video description, and TIA Premium is also up there as well. But these are the sort of gains that they're making using strict trading plans that they are learning how to implement, so that when the markets come around into the mega bull market, the mania, it becomes much, much easier. 100%, solid 93 there from Ricardo, 76, 500, 70. You get the idea of how it is a must to understand this if you want to be trading in the markets. And as I said, it's not for everyone. But let's move across back to Bitcoin dominance. I'll throw this back up. I've gone through the entire chart to break down the altcoin seasons to the Bitcoin season. And of course, we're in the Bitcoin season. We're getting closer to our 50% level, which is at 56%. So we'll keep an eye on that. And this one is the total market cap. So this includes stable coins as well. Now, if we exclude stable coins, which is our white line here, so this is a custom indicator that we've created at the Investor Accelerator. And of course, you can also get access to this if you subscribe to the TIA Gann Swing indicator. This one here shows you the percentage without the stable coins in it. And it's currently sitting at roughly 58%. So you would just use that and have a look at where it sits versus the previous support and resistance levels. So probably coming up to around that sort of 64% level would be somewhere to look for a possible rejection for the Bitcoin dominance without those stable coins. So potentially a more truer reading of the Bitcoin dominance here. So with that in mind, and the fact that it's still in a Bitcoin season, the dominance is still up, what are we seeing with altcoins? Well, ETH is having a hard time holding the line here at 5.2%. It is in the support zone here, which was the previous low that came in through June of 2022. So it is holding up at a support level, but it's not finding that bounce that I guess the bull, an Ethereum bull, would like to see to get it back above. If it did hold this level and it did bounce, the level that it needs to achieve is 6%. So 0.06, 6% of Bitcoin's value right there. That would be the first level to overcome, consolidate, and then you would start to target 6.4%. So you've got a bit of work to do here as an Ethereum bull. However, personally, I don't mind these areas to start to get into some ETH, even though there is the possibility of it coming back down, testing 4.9% and testing even lower. Because at the end of the day, we never know where the low is going to be. Our goal, like we've talked about for the entire bull market and bear market, is to buy around the lows, whether it's 15K, whether it's 25K, to buy around the lows and then sell in profit around the highs. And you don't have to pick the highs. Remember, all you have to do as an investor, and it seems very, very easy, is to take a chunk of profits out of the middle. And as you can see the market break out of these tops, that might not even be a bad place to buy, even though it seems like it's well and truly off the lows. But if you can identify these lows earlier on, that gives you bigger returns, so bigger reward. You just want to reduce that risk. So all you have to do is take a chunk out of the middle. Don't need to worry about taking the exact bottom. It's too late, I missed out, or trying to sell that exact peak. So the earlier you can get in, the lower risk it can be, because you're closer to those lows, but you just have to wait. You have to be more patient to get those higher prices. So as we can see for ETH BTC, it's coming to around those low levels now. No matter which support resistance lines you look at, you can look at some horizontals, you can look at some diagonals and the horizontals here. It's getting close there. And if we look at a percentage to those lower ends, roughly 18 to 22% from the diagonal down to the horizontal, which sounds like a lot, but I guess in cryptos and altcoin values, it's not that bad considering the possibility of the upside. No guarantees, just the possibility. So if we take a look at something that went right at this stage, I would think in the cycle last time round, it was the DeFi summer. Something like Link went bananas to the upside. Take it off log, you can see just how big that move to the upside was. It was one of the best performers through that period, and those last couple of months were ginormous. This could be what happens next year with some other sort of narrative, so keep that in mind as well. But what happened after that point is a complete and utter terrible performance from the DeFi plays, the majority of them anyway. So that was from August 2020. We know the top of the market was, we had one in April and then another in November, and altcoins were slightly either side of that. So here is your May peak, and there is your November, December peak. It was on the way down. It had a quick pump in January 2022, so just after that period. So it was a terrible performer through the mega altcoin season. So keep that in mind if your altcoin is pumping now. Something like what we're seeing at the moment with injective pumping, this might be the play now, but it might not be the play in the altcoin season of 2025. Now, I'm just throwing it out there to remind ourselves of this because you could make huge gains and then give it all back. That's definitely not what you want to do. So this does happen, especially if the market has pumped beforehand. But the biggest thing is to take the damn profits and just continue to follow the trend until the end, and that trend breaks down, which is why we use our Gann swing indicator. You can see here, all of those trends are still up here on the mega time frame, on the monthly here. We take a breakdown to the weekly, you can see that these trends were still holding out from January, from earlier this year. There has not been a break of the weekly swing bottom in that entire period. So it's very easy to continue to pull up those stops time and time again, all the way to the top. Trading in altcoins is a minefield. Now, we just looked at one way that we can get it right and still get it wrong, lose the money. We don't want to lose the money. We want to keep the money. So that was one way, a narrative that has popped off too early. Another way is getting into an old narrative. Solana, I know I'm still going to get hate on this. That's absolutely fine. But Solana was something that pumped in the last cycle. It might do the same thing this time. But if you've been around since 2017, you're probably far more aware of this, that it's very, very unlikely for anything from the previous cycle to pump as hard in the second cycle. And that is it's against its Bitcoin value. So its USD value, it might even make it back to old all-time highs. It might make it to $260 again like it did last cycle. But the idea is to make more Bitcoin in this game. And making more Bitcoin means less risk and potentially means more USD in the long run as well. These things only pop off for very short periods of time in their entire life cycle. And hopefully I'm wrong on one of these, because at the end of the day, most of these have never done 2 cycles in a row. You can basically count on one hand those cryptos that have done it 2 cycles in a row. Something like Dogecoin actually did it. We'll see if it happens again this cycle, but that's another big thing to keep a lookout for. If they've started to pop off, or they had a big previous cycle, just watch how they perform against their Bitcoin value in this coming cycle. Bitcoin's having a fantastic day here, hitting $36,500, looking like it really wants to come up and test that $40,000, $42,000 level. It might not be the same for the altcoins. However, if you are finding some fantastic gains from the alts, be sure to take some profits. Have targets set where you want to take some profits, because the last thing you want to do is give back all of those gains and hopefully not see another cycle like 2021 where you see the gains go up and then you see them come back down. A big one coming up, because the cycle has changed, is the PTSD from the bear market. Sometimes these runs are going to go on longer than we have expected over the last 12 to 18 months because the cycle is changing. Think about that. These things are starting to extend further to the upside. So don't be too worried if you miss out on that extra little bit more. Start to change that perspective so that you can remain with the trend longer and take more of those gains as the cycle has shifted now from the bear to the bull. keep that in mind. We're not at the halving yet. We're not at the 42K level yet. And I anticipate once this run is done, we are going to have a little bit of time to cool off. And that could be a bit of a harsh reality check for altcoin degens at this stage in the cycle. Like and subscribe. Hopefully I'll see you on the weekend in Melbourne if you're around town there. Otherwise, I'll be back here on the channel with another video for you very soon. Remember, Black Friday is also coming up, so get onto our email list and there'll be sure to be some great specials coming out there for you as well. Link is for that is top of the video description. Otherwise, check out the video popping up on your left-hand side. I'll see you very, very soon. Till then, peace out.